love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union. Hello comrades and welcome back to the Ushanka Show. Today we're gonna talk about medical service in Soviet Union and the things I remember from my time living in Kiev, Ukraine. First of all, you probably know by now that medical service in the USSR was free. Well, I hate to say it was free, it was paid by government. It was nothing ever free, because doctors didn't work for free, they got paid. They didn't get paid much, but they still got paid. So government covered all the medical expenses. And, looking at the big picture, it's hard to tell anything bad about service that you got for free. As you say, you get what you pay for. Or as we say in, there's a Russian proverb, дареному коню в зубы не смотрят. You don't inspect the horse's teeth if you got it for free. So, but to give you a general idea, we had several kind of these sarcastic jokes about medical service, and one of them was that saying that we лечимся даром, даром лечимся, which you can translate as our medical free care is free, carefree. Our medical free care is carefree. And another one is when a patient comes in, a person comes in the doctor's office and he's asking, "Hello, are you my free doctor?" And the doctor answers, "Yes, are you my terminal patient?" So as you see, the Soviet people were quite sarcastic about their medical services that they received in Soviet Union. My first experience with the Soviet medical system started, of course, during my birth in July of 1971. Of course, I don't remember much about those days. Actually, I don't remember anything. But my parents didn't have to pay anything. My mother stayed for about a week after giving birth. But, of course, they didn't have a, separate personal room. As my wife here in Michigan, when she gave birth to my kids, it cost me about $2,000 for, services, but we had a separate room, had TV, had adjustable bed, has a nurse on hand all the time. Over there, my mom shared the room with about another at least 10 women, and everything was very basic. Later on, when I was probably about 3 months old, my mother took me to the village where my father is from, so to show to in-laws their new grandson. And there, so that was probably about October or November, so it was pretty cold weather. And I had a problem. The pacifiers that my mom gave me, I was sucking really hard the pacifiers, and she was afraid I can, damage it and swallow the piece of it. And she wasn't sure what to do about it. So my grandma, for whatever reason, gave her a great idea to cut the tip of the pacifier, so then I won't be sucking it that hard because air will be going right through. And what happened, I was sucking the very cold air, and I caught really bad pneumonia, so both sides. And that's how I ended up in a local hospital, and Mom said I was doing really bad, and they were afraid that I'm gonna die. And since then, for quite a few years, I had pretty weak lungs. I was almost every winter had some kind of bronchitis. And I remember my mom saying that the food was really bad in that hospital, which, they cooked everything right there. It was nothing like a Cisco deliveries when they bring you frozen meals and you just heat them up and give to patients. They had to cook from scratch, and since there was shortage of almost everything, I'm quite sure that people in the hospital kitchen they were stealing like butter, meat and everything else. So they were putting less stuff while cooking, so everything was watery and not tasting good because they didn't put everything they're supposed to while preparing meals. Next time I got in the hospital in Kiev when I was approximately 5 years old. I was limping since I was a kid, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, now I know, well, later we found out I have a really mild case of cerebral paralysis, like really, really mild case, but my left side is more developed than my right side. This is why I'm lefty. So like my left arm is stronger and I can do things with it more effective with my right hand. And also my legs and my arms are different lengths. So my left leg is a little bit longer than my right leg, and same with my arms. So this is the reason I'm still limping, but I guess I was limping more when I was a kid. And my mother noticed that I never stepped on my right heel. So it was a kind of running around in circles trying to figure out what's going on, what to do to fix my issue with limping. And one of the doctors suggested to get a different height shoes. And when my mom went to the shoemaker, he actually started asking questions. Why do you want to have a shoe of a different height? And then he said he refused to do it. He said it's going to destroy your son's back, going to throw him out of whack. So she didn't do it. So in the end, she managed to find a good doctor, and he recommended to do, they call it achilloplastica. So they tried to extend my Achilles thing, whatever it's called, on my right foot. So actually, they perform a surgery on my leg. So, they put me kind of like that asleep. And then I had a cast on my leg, and I stayed in the hospital for about a week. Of course, still no charge. And the room had about 10 kids in it. And of course, parents came to visit, and they had to bring food for the same reason that meals in the hospital were pretty pathetic. We didn't pay, as I said, anything, but they asked politely my father to donate blood. So he did. And later I found out that they drained so much blood over him, so he barely made it home. He was passing out on the bus riding home. So that was my second time I was in hospital in Ukraine. A couple of years later, I had an accident in the winter. We were playing snowball fights outside, of course, and so I got my hands like really cold. So I went inside of the building that we lived at that time. That's still that building that we had a little one-room apartment, and they had a hot water batteries, for heating in the hallways. So I was leaning against that battery with my hands, trying to warm them up, and kind of was on a little angle, and my leg suddenly slipped. So I fell and I hit my chin right on the top of that battery, and it was a really pretty sharp edge. So I sliced my chin pretty bad, and blood was gushing. I ran back to my apartment crying and screaming, knocked the door, and my parents were trying to take care of me, but they realized that the cut was pretty ugly. So they took a taxi and they drove me to the hospital, and that's where I got stitches. The only thing about that experience, doctor was drunk. I remember my parents complaining about it. It was sometime around holiday, it was like late evening. I guess they didn't expect being busy, so he said, yeah, he did pretty decent job for being drunk, but still you could see a little scar on my chin. And all this BS, my kids telling them that it was a night fight and I barely managed to save my neck from slicing. That's all I got, sliced my chin. I was about 9 years old when I again got in the hospital. Again, it was winter. We were playing ice hockey a lot, and of course we didn't have skates, so we just were running around. And I was constantly falling on my left knee, and in the end it swollen really bad. So my mom took me to the doctor. Doctor recommended to go to the hospital. So we're doing different procedures there, heating, and give me some drugs to make that swelling come down. So I spent also about 5 or 6 days in the hospital that time. Again, big room, a lot of kids in it, no TV. Nurses come once in a great while to check on you. Doctor comes once a day to check on your progress. Otherwise, you on your own, just hanging out with other kids, playing dominoes and stuff like that. And later, when I was about 18 years old, after I finished high school, I had my eyesight was getting worse and worse. I'm quite a short-sighted person. So doctor suggested to have a surgery in my eyes. So it's kind of similar to LASIK, but it's done in 2 stages. First, they insert inside of the eyes this little, I'm not sure how to call it, little thin items that kind of stop the bottom of your eye to move away. That's how it gets out of focus. And then second stage, they make the little slices, they slice your eye, made little micro scars, just like laser, and it makes your eye shrink, and then kind of your eye comes back into focus. So I had that surgery done when I was 18, again, free of charge, but it was just done, they just give me a shots around my eye so I don't feel the pain, but I was awake, I was horrified. I think I was puking after that surgery, and I was so scared about going for the second. They did one eye at once, then I had to come back 2 weeks later, get the second eye done. Then I just said, I heard bad stories about people's eyes explode if somebody, hits you in the eye by accident. So I said, forget it. I don't want to do it. And that was the last time I was in the hospital in the Soviet Union when I was about 18 years old. And it was kind of a small interesting detail about that experience with that surgery. My doctor was a quite young and very, very attractive lady. And as I said, after she did my first eye, just that I was so, I guess, scared during the surgery. So I definitely didn't feel good. I couldn't eat. I was puking. And so I was just laying in the hospital in the bed. And she came to check on me. And, I was just like, I want to die. I was horrified. My eye was covered. And just, that stress, I guess, was killing me. So she sat on my bed, kind of really close to me so I could feel her leg. And, so I'm 18, like a horny teenager. She started talking to me, kind of caressing my arm. Yeah, so anyways, next thing I knew, I was kind of all bothered, and I totally forgot about my bed. I got all horny, and nothing happened between us, but just that little female touch, she kind of brought me from the desperate, I want to die kid and a teenager, and then I was normal. And second surgery on my other eye went well, and everything was good. If you watch my previous videos about coins in the Soviet Union, I already mentioned that when you call payphone, the cost was 2 kopecks, but you could dial 3 numbers free of charge. If you dial 01, it's you call for the firefighters. If you dial 02, you call for police, which we call militia. And if you dial 03, you call for the Skoraya Pomosh, so you call for ambulance. And Skoraya Pomosh is you can translate as a speedy help. So those are the calls you could do if something happens. Then they come to your building, and doctor and nurses, and they'll check on you. And if you're in serious problems, then they'll take you to the hospital. And actually, one friend of mine used to work at the ambulance in Kiev and had a lot of good stories. Fortunately, none of my family had to use that service. But yes, if you dial 03 on the payphone or your home phone, that's how you reach the ambulance help in Soviet Union. Another interesting detail, which is different from my experience here in America versus Soviet Union, I had all my teeth removed by dentist. So I was very surprised, like here in America, people don't do that. They just wait till the tooth gets totally loose and it comes off by itself, or, kid pulls it out. At least my mother and my family, anytime, when I had milk teeth, we call them milk teeth. I think here in America they call it baby teeth. So when the kid has, his first set of teeth, baby teeth, when it becomes loose, I tell my mom, hey, mom, this tooth become loose. She's like, all right, we're going to take it to the dentist. So then she will go to a local hospital, больница, which is like more, not like a hospital, but when they give you service, you don't stay there overnight. And she'll make an appointment, and then we go to the dentist, and he put me in a chair and he yanked my tooth out. So every single, my tooth was actually removed professionally by a dentist. Was never any single tooth of mine that I pulled by myself. And I believe my last milk tooth, the ones that were kind of in the back and had long roots, that one wasn't moving. It was solid tooth, and I don't think it was even any problems with it. But my mom was like, well, it's still a milk tooth, baby tooth, it needs to come out. So we did the x-ray, and it showed that there's a new tooth sitting under it. It just has no chance. So she told me, okay, you have an appointment. So I went up to school to the dentist office, and that was the worst experience I ever had about pulling teeth, because a dentist, he took his those shiny pliers, and he tried to pull the tooth out, and he said, geez, this needs a bigger tool. Sit right here. So I'm sitting in this chair watching him, and he went to the back room, and he comes back with this huge shiny pliers, like big ones. And just seeing them just made me so scared, and he just, grabbed my tooth with those big pliers and just ripped that tooth out. It has a big roots. Oh my God, there was so much blood gushing out of that hole, but still no charge. And I had to have some dental work done to my teeth, like regular fillings. And usually it was a 2-stage, so you come first time, and they will drill there, and then they put some poison, mышьяк, and that same poison that we used to in Soviet Union to kill mice. And I'm not sure, I'm sorry I didn't do my homework, I didn't prepare with translations, but they'll put a temporary fill-in to keep that poison inside, and you come back like the next day, they remove it, wash it, and then they put the complete filler. So I remember that was kind of bizarre, walking around knowing there's a rat poison in your tooth sitting there. And of course, since free, everything was for free, and the doctors weren't paid much, some people will do a good job regardless if they paid good money or not. Some people just, this is how I get paid, this is how I work. So with time, local people will know which doctor to avoid, which dentist to avoid. So there'll be cases when, we have 2 dentists working at the same time, and there'll be a line of people trying to get to this dentist, and no one wants to go to that other dentist because they know he does lousy job and his filling's gonna fall out really soon, stuff like that. And other interesting details, that's kind of silly memories, but when you have to do like samples, urine samples, and for some reason we did also your poop sample. When I was a kid, I remember doing it, and they check, I guess, for worms and stuff. You do it at home. You didn't do samples at the hospital. You actually, like for poop, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you this. We used our matchboxes. So in Soviet Union, price was 1 kopek. I already talked about that in my previous video. You have an empty matchbox, and like on this picture, and that's where you put a chunk of dookie, and then you take it to the hospital. And usually for the urine sample, people would use mayo jar from the Mayo. That was the smallest jar. I think it was 100 grams maybe, or 200 grams. It's a small jar, small glass jar. So you just pee half of it at home. You know, your mom sealed it the best she can with the, like a rubber cap, and then you take that next morning to a doctor, or you do it same morning and carry it. So that was kind of strange. They didn't have any specific, you know, equipment in the hospital to take your sample. You just do it at home and bring those match boxes with poop and glass jars with urine right to the hospital for the sample. Okay, so this is our first video about the medical service in Soviet Union. I have some more things to talk to you guys about, what I remember. It's about things that people did trying to get better themselves without help of doctors, about medical books. And I'm going to show you, I have my medical books that I brought from Ukraine. And that's the book that has all your records from day one when you were born. I still have it, so I'm excited to show you as a separate video. So as always, don't forget to put the likes for this video if you really liked it. Share with your friends, share on social media, and your support is always appreciated. We will talk to you later. Goodbye.